One question, an amazing lineup of CEOs, founders, and experts. This is Marketing for the Now.
Super excited.
Can you hear me? You're 50 yet.
Thank you so much.
That made me feel
Thanks for having me. I love how both
realize if you're back.
So glad to be
You really
Marketing for you.
Hey, Gary.
It is wonderful to see you, Andrea. How are you?
I am good. Happy Passover.
Thank you to everybody out there.
Sounds like a lot of people are also heading off on some early Easter vacations and things, but hopefully they're going to listen to this because we're going to talk about all the things that you need to know about AI. It's going to be a good one. I'm excited not only about the topic, but I'm excited to have Avery join you in this conversation. Let's bring her up. Avery Akanini, our president of Vayner3. Welcome, Avery.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Thank you, Andrea, always for putting these on. And thank you, everyone, for tuning into Marketing for the Now. We're excited to do a little bit of a different format this time. We have a couple of brand guests, and we're also going to do a couple of demos. But before we get into all that fun, Gary, wanted to start by asking you some questions of sort of what's on your mind with AI. You know, internally, we've been talking about this since the summer when Midjourney and then subsequently DALL-E 2 sort of caught our eyes. And then ChatGPT happened and 100 million users also caught on to that. So how big of a deal is generative AI for brand builders and for marketers?
I mean, it's, and I think we've seen the headlines over the last 30, 45 days. It's so big that you have some of the biggest names in technology history saying like, hey, should we contemplate taking a collective human pause for 6 months and really try to understand this? It is a profound technology. I think back to search really hitting the scene, the internet, and then search engines. And it was like, wow, this is like a big deal for like human information capacity, efficiency, like literally, I don't have to drive 32 minutes, or if I live in a rural area, or 15 minutes to the city, or 5 minutes to the library, find the encyclopedia or the book or the reference. It was just like, wow, things that used to take even 10 minutes in your own home to go downstairs, get the encyclopedia, like 10 minutes became 10 seconds with search, and so much happened. AI is like a whole different, like I bring up search because it's an easy, quick comp, but the multiplier on artificial intelligence is profound. It gets smarter. It's not stagnant. And what it's going to mean to creative. I was talking to a musician the other day, and he was like, Gary, how should I think about this? So I was like, well, do you understand that you'll be able to like probably get very good insight on what you should title your song? Like that the machine learning is going to get so strong that, hey, if I want this to happen, what should I title this song? Or testing hooks or extracting hooks. I mean, it just gets so wild. It's really difficult, Avery, to completely comprehend the profound nature of what it can do. And, obviously I think the big elephant in the room is trademark and copyright. I hear that bubbling up a little bit behind the scenes right now. But this is very, very, very substantial technology. And I really don't see anyone on earth not being affected by it. Especially because you really clearly can see already with the ChatGPT APIs, like food services, like others like already starting to play with it. And so you very quickly you're like, oh, right. Like, Alexa and Google Home and these things, they're going to get stronger because the race is on with the biggest tech companies. And then, oh, right, all these consumer apps are going to start layering AI into their environments, and we use them every day. So, yeah, I think it's a big, big deal, and so big that I think we're drinking from the fire hose, but being thoughtful on how we're going to execute against it.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that because obviously, marketers are listening to this. There are some practical things that people can be doing right now. You talked a little bit about OpenAI's products, ChatGPT. They also have DALL-E 2 and others. What are some of like the practical things that you think that marketers can do today to start getting themselves educated? Because I do want to touch on in a second some of the watchouts, which are very, very real for brands who have a lot to lose, if they're jumping into this space a little too quickly.
Actually, let me reverse the question because I think, oftentimes I'm interviewed by people that I feel like are right there in answering the questions, and I'm always enjoying other people's perspectives. You're heading up our innovation agency. I know you well. You're in it right now. Why don't you answer that question in reverse?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think? I'll give you my 2-second one, and then you take it deeper. Everyone needs to be tasting it. I'm petrified, Avery, that there are a ton of people here who've read the headlines but have not played with it.
Oh, and that's definitely the case. So I feel like
Yes.
everyone who's watching this right now, like your homework coming out of this, because Gary and I are framing this up as like homework season. And, I've worked for you for more than 5 years, Gary, and everything new you always want to run at. This is the one thing that you're like, let's run at it, but internally, like, let's really get ourselves together. Let's really do our homework because this is very, very powerful and a lot can go right, but a lot can also go wrong. So internally.
And specifically, I apologize. The thing, just so everyone's listening, because we have clients, it's very quick to think, oh, we're an agency. Let's make art out of this product for our clients. We can make something, AI can help us make something in 2 minutes, a minute, that might take an hour for someone in Adobe or Canva or something of nature. The problem is the source of the creative is not clear enough yet. And we want to be very cautious about that. So for a lot of people here, play for it for yourself, learn it, use it internally. To your point, Avery, like decks that our team are making for each other, you can do that. That might save you an hour to prep for a meeting. But if you're doing something on behalf of someone else, be understanding and thoughtful about some of the stuff that's in the air, right?
Yeah, I think there's like 4 major buckets where we see this being a useful tool for us already internally and for our partners. Like we work with Fortune 500 brands and enterprises. And at the end of the day, wherever consumers go, brands need to understand the fact that hundreds of millions of people are already doing this. And they're not just using ChatGPT, they're creating AI headshots and portraits, and anyone can be this new type of artist. There are like professional generative AI artists, and even a guy in our team who's sort of been spearheading this internally has been winning these generative art competitions for like real artists. So like people are catching on to it. Brands have to understand. And I think we're in this novelty phase right now. We're like, okay, great. ChatGPT wrote my script and I'm Ryan Reynolds. Like that is a novelty that is getting attention because there's relevance in this. But I think we're about to shift into more of the utility component, and generative AI can be useful for strategy. Being a strategic partner can be useful for copywriting. Even training certain models so they sound like I'm in the voice of Gary Vaynerchuk, right? Like you can train it over time to visual creation, like asset production. Anyone who's ever worked in agency knows there's a lot of resizing and a lot of formatting and a lot of production help. And we'll hear from some of those partners. And then lastly, I also think this ongoing sort of ideation and ongoing community management, there can be a lot of automation in this that exists today. And people are feeling a little like, oh, is this going to take away the jobs of creatives and, of thinkers? And to us, exactly what you said at the top of this call, it's and not or. It's right now it's a supplemental thing. So that's what I'm seeing on my side.
I need to just say something. Troy Denson in the YouTube comments said that ChatGPT said the Jets won't win the Super Bowl until 2078. So I'll be walking away from this stream right now and going to work out and eat well because I need to survive until that day. That would put me at 103, Avery, and I'm very focused on that. So thank you, Troy, for the information. Abe, what about the fear? I think, I saw someone say, like the real question is what's this going to do to the job market? And I think it's very clear that this technology is so profound that there will be a scenario where it is able to do things that humans are currently being paid for. However, much like the tractor in farming, those humans went on to do other things that were impactful, the critical thinking of using AI, or altogether different things. As you know, because you're on top of things, we've been talking about autonomous cars taking truck drivers' jobs for a decade. I've been hearing AI is going to take jobs forever. Now it's here, to your point. We don't have like the Uber of autonomous trucks yet where we can have that conversation. Any hot take, any intuition? What are you hearing?
I think that's the thing that, especially internally, we have thousands of creatives who work across the Vayner companies, and people are like, hey, is this going to be, something I need to watch out for? And it's actually something that they need to learn and embrace and understand. I think a lot of our success at Vayner has come from embracing change, understanding what's happening and skating to where the puck is going. Because there will be prompt engineer jobs. We already see some people who really get this. Their prompts are getting better. Their output is getting better. It's just like you mentioned Adobe or Canva. Like, it's a tool. You need to understand how to use the tool. And now I think we can call this homework season. Is a time for brand marketers and really anyone to spend time understanding these tools so they can effectively leverage them in this sort of next era of the internet.
Joey says, I used text AI to write a blog post, and I was amazed at how effective it was in helping me expand on my thoughts. Completely mind blown. I think you mentioned it earlier. Again, everybody loves the whole concept of or. You know where I sit on this. There's a pandemic. It's called being obsessed with or instead of understanding and. I think the co-creating thought partner that AI will be for copywriters is going to be profound. It's going to be a training wheels. Some people use classical music. Some people use a glass of wine. Some people use going to the cabin in the woods to like actually help them write and think and put pen to paper. I actually think AI is going to be a much more effective version of that psychology. And I'm pretty excited about that.
Super excited. Gary, where do you think that this is sort of heading in the now and the next for marketers, just as we get ready to have our next guest on?
Do I have 2 minutes before the next guest?
Yeah.
Cool. So I just wanted to know the timing. I think this. I hate that the world obsesses about yesterday tactically, not learn from it. I think that people overly, trying to figure out tomorrow, and I'm obsessed with the concept of today. The now of it is it's here. And every single marketer, every single operator, every single creator, and every single human who's watching this needs to leave at the end of this hour and literally listen to the platforms that are here and go create accounts and go taste. It's just here. We've touched on some of the ways that you have to be thoughtful, copyright, trademark. You have to be a little thoughtful for commercial use, but for yeah, very. AKA, we're not doing it, and we always do everything. So, but you must use the serendipity of watching this today in the middle of a Wednesday to be like, okay, I've been putzing around. There's some people talking shit about it, Avery, like this is the worst or this is the best, and literally haven't used it yet. So the answer is go ride the bike. Don't have thoughts about what swimming is going to feel like. Jump in a pool and swim. That's the game.
All right, amazing. Andrea, we'll let you pull up with the next guest.
Thanks,
fantastic.
Amy.
Thanks to you both. All right, we're going to bring John up next. John Licata, who is the Chief of Innovation at SAP's Future Hub. And his mission is to uncover emerging trends ahead of mainstream thinking. Welcome, John.
Hey, everybody. How you doing? Hey, Gary.
John, how are you?
Good. Good to finally connect.
So much, brother. All right, break it down for us, John. First of all, your background's epic.
Awesome. AI generated, just for you.
Give it to us, my man. Just like pontificate here. I won't even go. I'll give you the floor up front. Like what, obviously you probably were listening. I assume you didn't just sign in. What do you agree with? What do you want to expand on? What do these people need to know?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I really think that you're right. We have to jump in the pool and we have to play. And unfortunately, right now, you're seeing some companies almost bring in an AI hammer and playing whack-a-mole to fix things without actually trying them. And I think that's definitely premature. I think that we need to figure out how we can be augmented by AI and become better. I mean, you mentioned in your monologue about, you know, the ability to maybe write better or have the opportunity to have it help you. And I really think that's where we need to go, is the augmentation of humans. You can make a case for certain jobs being replaced, and Challenger, Gray, and Christmas talking about 2.5 million US jobs could be replaced by ChatGPT alone, and Goldman Sachs talking about maybe 250 to 300 million jobs globally from AI in general, not just from generative AI, but AI in general. But I think this is a time to try things out for upskilling, to see how you can maybe get better at doing your job. Because if certain tasks are automated, that might allow you to try to be more innovative, to try new opportunities to put in, not just with, you know, creating cool images, but I really think that we have to be prepared for moving from Web 3.0, focused on digital assets, and really think about maybe 4.0, digitizing trust. This is where I think marketers and businesses need to understand, because the other day I was looking and I came across a cool track from Jay-Z. Guess what? It wasn't Jay-Z. And you know, this morning there was something about Taylor Swift fans that they were using her likeness and voice, but to personalize messages. Clearly that wasn't her as well. But the reality is the IP, the copywriting. How do you? It's easy to say we need to use AI to get ethical and become more responsible. What does that mean? Systems need to play with each other. They need to understand, how do you navigate AI in a world of compliance with sustainability, understanding if we're going to play and jump in the pool, there's got to be some sort of framework that we can make sure that we do it right. And I think that's, you know, my family's from Italy, Gary, and I just saw.
Oh, I hear it, Johnny.
I know. And over the last couple of days, you saw, you know, the Italian government putting a pause on generative AI. And I think that what we need to get to the point of is understand, can I trust the data as a business, as Vayner, as SAP? Can we move forward and have embedded AI in our solutions that people can ultimately trust? And at the moment, you know, you're seeing some models that are spitting out false information. How, as a business or a marketer, how can you act on information? You know, one of our executives put his bio in recently, and it came out at ChatGPT that he was deceased. Clearly, he was sitting next to me. He was not deceased.
By the way, just to remind, but brother, and you know this, just to remind everybody, this is deja vu. Yeah. I didn't trust all the search results. Like in 1996, they weren't always right. Like, you know, with any tech, you know, that's funny though. I'm sure you're saying this as well. With every technology, we have to have a double check, a thoughtfulness. You know, to your point, like, how do you know if it's real? The biggest problem in the world right now is people are just reading headlines and just accepting them as truth. Absolutely. People also, John, as you know, they see or find what they're looking for. People also take Wikipedia as 100% truth, while there's tens of millions of people who, for fun, are putting shit in Wikipedia that isn't true. Like, you know, like, I mean, Google, early Yahoo, like, had many things wrong about wine. The first result was an article about wine because the guy knew, or the girl knew how to do SEO, and it wasn't right.
Yeah.
You know, so, like, you know, I'm just wondering, will AI be the final nail in the coffin, where social media was a preview to it, of like, when are humans willing to become accountable, to become thoughtful again? Because the intellectual laziness and or the bias to find what you're actually looking for is a massive problem that we're all affected by. Like, the thought that I would believe everything that came out of ChatGPT when it's 14 seconds old is asinine.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, and you know, I think we're going to come to a period, Gary, where, you know, you have products that are made in the USA, products that are made in China. You're going to have to start seeing made in AI, or work that's complemented, like this was submitted by, you know, an AI bot, or something that shows people that there was some complementary means. But look, you and me have been around, and I remember back in the 90s when .com took off, when you know, with the wine business and doing the great things that you've done, I was afraid to buy something online. I put in my credit card information in there. So, you know, so what? Now I know my UPS driver by his first name because things come here so frequently. But I think now we have to come to.
John, think about Uber. Back to just technology. if you told somebody 40 years ago that they would have preferred their 14-year-old to go into a strange man's car.
Yeah.
They don't know the man.
Absolutely.
Like, you'd rather your 14-year-old to stay safe is going in a stranger's car. That was literally the only thing my mom told me not to do.
Yeah.
Technology
Totally.
changes our norms all the time. By the way, little fun fact, the year 1800, 83% of the labor force worked on farms. And then tractors were invented.
Yeah, no, it's so cool to think about. You know, we have to figure out a way that we can leverage intelligence in new ways. And right now, you know, it's great to put a query in and to get some sort of intelligence for something that you need maybe in that here and now. But some of those models haven't been updated since 2021. So if I need to know something, I would rather have the machines know John, know Gary, help us in our moment that we're doing something, understand what are my business goals, what are my KPIs, and feed me information that will allow me to make better decisions, have better customer personas based on what's happening now. Their buying habits change. We don't have one blanket persona anymore, and maybe AI should be used more as an assisting tool. When it becomes more invisible, we can become more active.
You'll love this, and you know this. There'll be no should. AI is now a technology, like technologies like the gun, the fork, the atomic bomb, the internet. Like, people are going to use them for good, for bad, for indifferent. There's going to be no should. There's AI, and it's going to be used for all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And humans have proven the ability. Everyone that in my circles that's doomsday about this, I'm like, the atomic bomb was invented.
Yeah.
You know, like a gun was invented. I promise you, if we were all hanging around when the gun was invented, and we're like, wait a minute, my sword is like humans are capable. I also think the blockchain's verification infrastructure with an AI world, I haven't really put the ingredients are in my head. I'm like, wait a minute, if we're gonna need affirmation, isn't this the blockchain's core strength? I wonder if information going to the blockchain as a way to create provenance and resourcing and truth, that could be profound.
That's digital trust. That's Web 4.0 that we're going to be moving forward. And like even with NFTs, like right now it's artwork, but what about IP and exchanging these things that the AI can help with? So many different things, Gary, that we can tackle. And maybe we will have the Jets win, sooner than what that call is, because we're both suffering.
As long as I see it, 103, I'll be fine. I'll be like, yay, whatever. Are we done here? Andrea,
it goes so fast. Thank you so much, John. We're going to bring up Laura Bowden, who is a partner at Bain, and she's the architect of Bain Solutions in Marketing, and has recently joined arms with OpenAI in a partnership with Coca-Cola that we're super interested in hearing about. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you.
Hi, Laura. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm well. Tell us all about this exciting partnership. What should we all collectively learn from it?
Sure. So I guess maybe what I'll start with is kind of picking up on one of the themes that you were talking about. AI is here, and it's going to be like 10 years ago when every company board and CEO says, "Well, what are we doing about digital?" Now we're going to have every CEO and board saying, "Well, what are we doing about AI?" And so our perspective is that every marketing organization has to have a good answer to, not just that we're, giving the keys over to generative AI in order to create all of our content from here to eternity, but that there's a lot of really useful, practical applications of AI across the whole marketing value chain that, maybe aren't quite so flashy and sexy, but actually will create much better outcomes. And the partnership that we have with OpenAI and the philosophy that Coke has brought to this actually also echoes some of the other themes that you've brought up already. Number one is we just need to start learning what it can do and where is it useful and where do we test the limits and what do we need to be mindful of as the tip of the iceberg that allows us to unlock more opportunity across the whole marketing organization. And our partnership with OpenAI is very much structured around, OpenAI has created the technology. They haven't had the capacity to be able to think through all the different applications. And so we've been challenged to say, well, what can we be doing? What are the various different use cases? Where do we see, value coming out of those use cases? And then more importantly, actually, and sort of important to our business, how does that work? What do you have to rewire in order to be able to get the value out of it? Where would you actually start changing decision rules if you've got new steps in the process, or ways that individuals can be empowered to do things that they couldn't do before?
Yeah, I think that's right. What do you think? Actually, this is a fun one, Laura. What was like the most aha moment for you when you were like, "Uh-oh, this is a big deal"? We all kind of have those moments with big new technologies. I'm in that perfect age where my entire career has almost been hitting like Web 1, Web 2, Web 3.
Me too.
So So what was yours with AI? What were you like? Because I'm sure, given your career and all the great successes, like me, I looked at startups that were doing AI 4, 5, 6 years ago, and very quickly I was like, oh, okay, this is like half-assed machine learning, or a lot of them were just like, oh, these are just APIs. This isn't real AI. When did you have like oh man, this is like, when did you taste it, or what did you see? What was the aha?
So, very much from a marketing lens, the excitement that I have around generative AI in particular is that I think marketing has lived for far too long with the silos between brand and creative and performance. And generative AI is this awesome bridge that will actually finally bring them together, so that those who are coming up with the most creative concepts will be able to finally prove that they drive performance. And I think the technology is super exciting for being able to more quickly and easily optimize the content in a way that then you can see the performance value of it. I mean, I know we all know.
No, I think the thing there, Laura, as you know, is if one is interested in creating that accountability. My argument, to your point, in addition, additive to what you just said, is, oh, wait a minute, a lot of service providers are really enjoying the pointing the fingers that it's media or creative's fault. Like, people have been asking me lately, because we've been exploding, like, why is VaynerMedia winning, or why did this go so well, or why is it so hot? I'm like, really, the actual answer is we have a thirst to be accountable that our marketing is working. You're absolutely right. This is definitely a technology that can create that capacity. It's just that the industry for 30 years has really enjoyed the non-accountability.
Somewhat. I mean, we've been studying what we call marketing leaders for a decade or more than that at this point, where we look at the organizations that are driving sales and gaining share, and the things that they do different than everybody else. And throughout that decade, the leaders, those who are growing, they have that accountability. They optimize constantly. They're always testing, and they've built that bridge so that they are including the creative and brand teams into the accountability. Now, we could say that all day long. I agree with you. There's still many organizations who don't care, but I think more and more we're also seeing.
I also think a lot, to your point, I think on a good day, that group is 20%. And of that 20%, there's another 50% that is accountable because they're sales organizations with some marketing overlay, which gets them to that accountability of business. But that's on a tangent. Final thoughts, because I'm gonna want to make sure we've touched on everything you maybe wanted to touch on. Is there anything that this audience should be thinking about, needs to know about? Like, giving you the floor, what should that be?
Well, my perspective, obviously all the headlines are about the generative content and creative applications. But when you stop to think about it, there are 25 other applications of even generative AI within what marketing organization can do, whether it's leveraging unstructured data to be able to improve audience targeting, or whether it's actually recreating the brief process in order to include more data sources and make the briefs smarter. Those aren't the things that are going to be, like the Coke partnership garnering all of the headlines. But I think that's actually where a lot of the value is going to lie.
Right. The practicality of it.
Yeah, the not exciting stuff, but the practical stuff that will drive impact.
For everybody who's watching who's not in the marketing world, the brief is like a starting point document. And to Laura's point, many things that happen in marketing are incredibly vulnerable when the brief is too vanilla. And I was listening carefully to what Laura said. I think that's absolutely right. You to use this technology to give teeth to the brief for a lot of people will end up being a very practical operational enhancement. I think, Laura, to your point, and we kind of touched on it earlier, if you heard, a lot of the internal stuff is going to be really, really actionable right now. While I do think, are you also, Laura, hearing a lot of people at your level kind of chirping about the copyright or trademark fears on the creative generative stuff?
Yeah, and I think at some point we'll find ways to be able to create the right guidelines and kind of guardrails around that. The other piece that I think we can't ignore is the unintended bias that comes from the models being trained on a lot of history that none of us first want to repeat.
Of course. Andrea, how much? I'm a little. I feel like. Yeah, I got to go, right? Because
this one's going lickety split. So thank you so much, Laura. And thank you, Gary. Appreciate your joining on. We'll be talking a lot about AI going forward, but so nice to see you and happy holidays. Happy Passover. All right, let's bring Avery back on up. We've got a whole bunch of demos and interesting stuff to share with everybody, and very excited to first bring up Megan from Jasper, Megan Keeney Anderson. She's the head of marketing at Jasper. It's a generative AI platform that helps creators break through writer's block, create original art, and adapt their content for different formats, languages, and tones. It sounds like it does everything. Can't wait to hear about this one.
Yeah,
thanks so much.
Fun. Thank you so much for being here with us, Megan. I love Jasper, so super excited you could join us.
That's awesome.
So yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about what Jasper does. And as a little bit of context for everyone who's watching, we're now actually going to see a few demos, see how some of the stuff actually works, and hear from some leading experts who are building tools in this era. So Megan, let's talk about Jasper. What is it? What does it do?
Yeah, definitely. So Jasper initially emerged as a answer to that like visceral, commonly held pain point of staring at a blank page and not knowing what to create. Or not being able to communicate well your ideas. I think that like for the longest time, the main thing that has stood in the way of some of our best ideas has been our ability to communicate them well and at scale. Add to that most marketers today are under just enormous, intense content demands and have either flat or diminishing budgets. So Jasper emerged as an AI assistant to help creators, marketing teams kind of reduce the amount of time they're spending on the content production so that they can spend more time on things like ideation and editing and original research and all that good stuff. That's where it began. Today, it still answers that pain. But the other emerging pain that we're finding is that, AI is this phenomenal, incredible thing. But the outputs, even though they're beautifully written, they're pretty generic, right? You've all experienced this in any AI tool that you've used. So where we're kind of heading now with Jasper is the ability to do some training of our model around your own brand voice and style. So you can get on-brand AI-assisted content anywhere.
Amazing. And how did you get into Jasper? How did you get hooked on AI?
I was perfectly happy in my last job. I was having a great time. And then Jasper reached out and I tried the software and the tool, and it was like one of those moments that Gary was just talking about where you realize in an instant how transformative this thing is going to be in the way that we create, in the way that we communicate, in the way that we understand the world around us. And I just had to be a part of that. So I joined the company in September. It's been a wild, fun, interesting run since then. ChatGPT came out in November, so that brought a whole new level of awareness to AI as a tool. And we really see our role as like, we're squarely focused on businesses and really marketing teams. We see our role as trying to help these teams figure out how do they set standards for AI on their companies? How do they roll this out? What part of the process should this accelerate, right? So we're trying to really position as an aid to these companies that are trying to figure it out for the first time.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat saying they actually have used Jasper and they use it themselves.
Yay.
Who's the core audience? Who are the people and companies who are signing up for Jasper? I know it's some brands, I know it's some small businesses, some individual entrepreneurs. Like, who's sort of the core target? And what are some of the main ways that people actually use some of your suite of tools?
Yeah, so there's really kind of two audiences that we speak to. The first, and where we feel like we're really the most differentiated, is in businesses. So growing businesses that, again, are dealing with lots of content demands. They've got a team of marketers that are all creating content across different avenues and formats. And so that's sort of our primary buyer, is like the director of content or the CMO who's trying to keep up with their own content strategy. We also see a collection of, freelancers and individual bloggers and bigger companies that are sort of using this as a secret weapon. And we find that Jasper is pretty great at being able to flex to both, but we really come alive when used across a team to coordinate and collaborate on things like product launch campaigns.
All right, so let's see some magic. Let's see how this actually works. You were nice enough to prepare a little bit of a demo. So we'll pull that up and see how Jasper actually sort of comes to life in a real life use case.
Awesome. Sounds great.
Maybe
So
you can talk.
yeah, I'll talk through it. So this is also where you get to see how slow of a typer I am. So I think about, there's all sorts of ways you can use AI, but as a marketer, I think about kind of three different types. The first is to help write an original piece of content. So you maybe are stuck with that intro line, you need help completing it. Then the second is, how do you take that piece of original content that you've written and repackage it into different formats? Usually we're not just writing a blog post, we're doing a full-fledged campaign with a landing page and an email and social content. And so how do you take a core ebook or blog post and turn it into a full span of content and do that very quickly? So that's what you can see just happened there. Turn that intro paragraph into a tweet. And then the final use case I really love is adapting content to different audiences or different languages. So here I'm changing the above content into Mandarin. So you're able to sort of very quickly, not just translate, but truly localize content into different languages, which is pretty powerful for global companies. And then adapting it to different audiences. So for example, say I want to speak to small business owners versus enterprises, or one industry versus another. It can take that content and really adapt it so that it's more relevant to the person that you're targeting in a given campaign.
This is amazing, just the level of customization that's possible in such a quick period of time. You're just talking about typing speed, and it seems like Jasper is very quick.
Yeah. And one more thing I'll call out here that I should have mentioned is, you'll notice in this video, I'm in a Google Doc. I'm not in the Jasper platform, although I certainly could have done this in the Jasper platform. I think the most powerful thing about Jasper is that it follows you around wherever you need to create online. So if you're on LinkedIn and you want to use it to write a LinkedIn post, it's just a simple little purple cursor that you call up with a keystroke. If you're in your email or your CMS or any other platform that you use, you can have Jasper as this sort of invisible layer beneath all that.
That's amazing. Jasper comes with you across your journey, where you're the main character. So now, last and most important question, how do you handle like the questions that you probably get from CMOs and entrepreneurs on where is this data coming from? Like, how does licensing work? I know my lawyers made us were asking us that when we were sort of starting to work with y'all. So where does all this information come from again?
Yeah, so a lot of the questions we get are around both that, and then also like, hey, the content that I put into Jasper, where does that go? Is that used to train larger models? Is that secure? So it's two sides of that question. So for the first question around ownership, so Jasper doesn't own your content, you own your content. There is a debate right now around copyright. So there's a difference between ownership and copyright, right? Copyright just means, can I take this to the US Copyright Office and put that trademark stamp on it?
Yeah.
And the guidance on that has been talked about in prior sessions. The main guidance that we provide people is, if you want to copyright something, it needs to be a blend of AI and human creation, right? You can't just put a prompt in, get an answer, and hit publish. And frankly, you shouldn't do that anyway. All content you create with AI should be edited and contributed jointly with a human creator. It's meant to be an accelerant, not a replacement. So if there is a good, healthy blend of human ideas in there and for your own writing, that gets more into the realm of what you can copyright and own. On the what of your data that goes into Jasper, kind of what happens to that, that's also yours to own. We're not using that to retrain the models, with the exception of your sort of custom model. We're not sending that back to like third-party language models or anything like that. That is yours to own within Jasper.
Amazing. Well, Megan, we could probably talk about legal terms all day, but thank you so much for joining us, for sharing a little bit about what Jasper does. And looking forward to doing more with y'all in the future. Really appreciate your time.
Love to be here. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Megan. All right, Avery, next up we have Mickey Friedman. He's the co-founder and CEO of Flare AI, which is an AI-powered creative tool that designs marketing collateral around your brand's unique style. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank
Mickey,
you so much.
Thank you for coming. I think we have like one of the most, Gen Z like meeting stories. We met on Twitter because I actually saw a demo of the tool that you were building, and I saw it picking up some steam and going a little bit viral. And I reached out to you because I was really impressed. And, we started exploring a partnership shortly thereafter. So I want to thank you for taking the time to be here with us today and demo the tool that you are building at your startup Flare. But before we get into all of that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and sort of what attracted you to AI? What was that light bulb moment for you?
Sure. Well, my background is in traditional machine learning. I've supported teams at Adobe and Tesla. Around 2021, I was really into the generative art scene. That's how it started. And eventually a friend approached me and told me that his dad needed to generate marketing collateral for his wine shop. So it started off very small. Originally, I thought I would be one of the first AI-enabled design and marketing agencies because I was only working with a few clients. But as I started to automate my workflow, I thought, what if we were able to make this self-serving? What if we were able to create this little design agency in a box that could help small businesses, but also marketing and design agencies do their work? And that's how Flare was born. I would really describe us as an AI-powered design and creative testing tool that integrates with your brand's customer data to generate personalized and highly converting product photos.
Yeah, and it's just come such a long way, even in the last few months. So can you talk a little bit about this idea of using it to create marketing collateral for small businesses? What are some of the use cases that you see already happening for Flare today? And what are some of the potential use cases you see of tomorrow?
Sure. So right now, I would say that our customers are separated in 3 groups. We've got small businesses, and they're usually generating product photo shoots for their e-commerce shops. We've got design agencies and marketing agencies using Flare, and they're sort of using it as a creative testing tool to, test out different products and different themes with their customers and focus groups. And then the third segment that we see are freelancers who are using Flare to generate, concepts for clients. And so that's sort of how it's being used right now. We've got several thousand weekly active users at the moment, and it's growing every single week. In the future, though, I really see this as a tool that will allow businesses to really personalize their content for different target demographics. So one use case that I see is, for example, if you'd like to generate an ad with a human selling your soda product, you can design your product photo shoot on Flare, and then you can generate different models based on the age group and locations of your general audience to really convert them. So that's where I see it going in the future. And I've actually prepared a demo that shows how you can do that.
Let's see some magic. Let's bring up the demo. And then Mickey, maybe you can sort of talk us through what we're seeing as it's kind of coming to life in real time.
Definitely. Let's do it. So this part of the demo is showing off the props feature, and they work just the way that they would in a real photo shoot. So here you can see we're dragging in a 3-step platform. Next, we're going to bring in a rose. And one of the most useful features for props is that you can adjust the color to align with your brand's style guide. So I just made that orange. I can change the color of the platform as well and add as many props as I like to the same composition. So there's really no limit to what you can do. Last, I'm going to drag in an orange and place it on the platform if this is a citrusy skincare product. All right. As you can see, when you drag in a prop, it auto-completes the prompt. So you don't really have to do too much prompt engineering. You can edit it if you want, but really it does most of the work for you. It takes only a few seconds to generate. And here's your final result. As you can see, the props become realistic, the lighting and the shadows are consistent, and every detail of your product, the words in the label, etc., are all preserved. So that's one of the ways that Flare allows you to control the overall composition of what you're trying to produce. Next, this is a demo that shows you how we can generate human models to sell your products. So you can start off with a template, and it's super easy. All you have to do is resize and position your product within the template, click generate. Takes a few seconds as well. And then you get a hyper-realistic result of a human selling your product. Now, the next step will be to basically generate humans based off of the localization and the age of your target audience so that it can really sell the product better in a more tailored manner. Yeah.
Amazing. One thing that I love about it, I think the viral post I'm talking about was one where you had a Chanel bottle and like these really cool flowers. So brands can actually bring their products into this as well, right? And then use generative backgrounds. I know I've done so many product photo shoots, everything from beer to skincare brands where it's in the snow, it's in the pumpkins, it's in the sand. So this seems like a major sort of time saver. But you have to get good at prompt engineering. Mickey, what are your recommendations for people who are just starting out in their AI journey and maybe looking to get better at prompts? There's probably some tips and tricks that you have from the many, many hours that you've poured into this, understanding how to optimize Flare.
Prompt engineering is really difficult. And what we've worked on in Flare is to create different ways to actually make prompt engineering easier. So for example, when you log onto Flare for the first time, I'd advise clicking through different templates that we have. The templates are based off of highly converting product photo shoots, designer ads that have really taken off. So we have basically reversed engineered how to recreate those photo shoots with your own products. So instead of writing out a really complicated prompt, you can click on a photo, see the prompt behind it, and edit it to produce the ad of your dreams. So I would recommend starting off with templates on Flare. And I think that with Stable Diffusion and DALL-E and other tools, you just have to give it a few tries, and then you start to get the hang of it. But yeah, like our goal is to make prompting as easy as possible, which is why we've added props and templates.
Amazing. So Mickey, how can listeners to this get access to Flare? Is this something that is still in beta? Is it fully publicly available? How does it work?
Flare is in beta, but you can go to app.flare.ai to give it a try. The human feature is going to be deployed sometime later next week. So stay tuned for that. But you can totally play around with props right now, and you can totally generate as many photos as you'd like with the templates that we have available. And you have full flexibility to edit those templates as well. So the customizations that you can perform are endless.
Amazing. Mickey, thank you so much for sharing a little bit, sharing the platform and talking about your journey at Flare AI. I know you've had this incredible upward trajectory in all things generative AI. So appreciate you taking the time to join us and share a little bit about your insights.
Thank you so much, Avery. This was great. Have a great day.
Thank
you, Mickey. Boy, that was magic. I love that. All right, we got another one, Avery. We're going to bring up Paul Aaron, who is the CEO and co-founder of Addition, an AI research and development company exploring the future of creativity. Addition works with brands and agencies like the New York Times and Unilever to develop data-driven insights, content, and experiences using generative models. Welcome, Paul. We're so happy to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, Paul, thank you for being here. We're so excited to hear a little bit about your insights and share a little bit of information on how Addition works. I am an Addition power user, I'd say, from some of the recipes that y'all have out there. So I'm really excited to share with the Marketing for the Now audience a bit about the cool stuff that y'all are building. So first, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Addition?
Yeah, sure. So my background's in marketing and advertising, and I've been in the industry for, I guess, about 15 to 20 years. And I started out as a digital executive producer in like the, I guess, mid 2000s, and was always kind of focused on how are marketers and brands adapting to the technology of the moment, which back then was mobile and social. And a couple years ago, I just kind of had the feeling that there was too much for brands and agencies to keep track of. There were just like too many channels, too many data sources, and I felt like AI was going to begin to play this outsized role in the marketing, creative, and strategic process. And so I teamed up with somebody I knew for a long time who has an AI and machine learning background, and we just sort of tapped into some of our friends, industry colleagues within brands and agencies, and just started putting AI to work. And in the process, I think we've had the privilege of collaborating with a lot of amazing agencies and amazing enterprise orgs, and really kind of getting a unique sense of how the market is starting to kind of use this tech. So yeah, it's been really wild and fascinating.
How has like the Chat GPT moment changed your inbound lead flow? I can imagine like as soon as Chat GPT kind of entered like mainstream consciousness, a lot of brands and marketers started being like, oh yeah, I need to figure out AI.
Yeah, there have been a few watershed moments over the last year, but that was definitely the biggest. And I think what was really amazing is it allowed people to kind of have that experience firsthand of really, sort of being amazed and blown away by the capability of generative AI. I remember the first time, I guess for me, it was, a couple of years ago now, where I was really like awestruck, and it's almost like a religious experience where you realize that, machines are becoming incredibly creative, incredibly, lifelike and human-like in what they're able to achieve. And so, yeah, I think for the world to sort of have that moment, that was what ChatGPT did. And for us, that, that just really helped in terms of not having to do as much education, right? So we started the company in 2021, and a lot of what we did in the beginning was just teaching people what generative AI was. And, we would, whip up a bunch of demos to kind of show them rather than tell them. But yeah, now most people kind of have had that experience. And so it really makes the conversation more tangible.
Well, that's a nice segue, Paul. Let's pull up some demos. Addition can do a bunch of really cool things. And, for folks who are listening to this, I would encourage all of them to check out your recipes that are available on your website. So there's just a lot of fun stuff you can do. I know there's a Super Bowl generator and, some like synthetic insights. I think the, first experiment I had leveraging Addition's models were you had trained a model on award-winning creative ads. And as someone who spent a lot of time judging and writing awards, I was like, oh my God, this is hysterical and amazing and the most contextually right reference for an ad agency or a marketing executive, because we all know what those should sound like. But I know there's a bunch of really cool things that you guys have sort of up and ready. So yeah, let's see the magic happen. Let's bring up the demo.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so as you're bringing it up, I'll say, we put a lot of these things out as sort of education. And this particular AI recipe is going to leverage news search to generate insights. And, insights are something that are, obviously very important to marketers. And we've been really fascinated at how systems like GPT-4 can turn data into insights. So what's happening now is based on a prompt, the AI is going to go out, it's going to search the web to find a corpus of data. It's going to then use that information coupled with a bunch of training examples of what make for really good insights. And it's going to kind of fuse those together into an insight that's in the style that I want. And in this case, we've used these kind of like really pithy, 1 to 2 sentence insight examples. So yeah, sorry, I'm on my phone. I'm having a hard time reading it, but
oh, no worries.
What does the
You
insight
were
say?
saying you find an insight about how generative AI will change the way that brands interact with the world. And it's typing very fast and saying generative AI is often perceived as a tool for automating tasks. But what if it evolves the way that brands communicate, fostering deeper and more meaningful interactions with consumers? Verbatims, and it starts to go into different verbatims. And what I like is it's sourcing these verbatims, which I think is a difference from some of the tools that we've seen even earlier in this episode.
Yeah. So again, this is really just to kind of, sort of educate people about different use cases. But for some of the brands that we work with, we're scaling this, this process up on larger data sets. So rather than, going out and searching news articles, which is kind of good if you're, an individual doing desk research. We're working with large enterprises to put this technology on top of first-party data, right? So it can kind of go through reams and reams of customer interviews and survey responses, and it can help them find little nuggets of consumer insights in their data that would otherwise take countless hours of human time to unearth.
Let's get very practical, just so everybody sort of who's listening here understands what that means. How do you get reams and reams of data to feed your model? Like, what does that process look like?
Yeah, so I guess it sort of depends on if you have data to begin with, but if you're
if you're a Fortune 500 company, let's assume you do.
Yeah, sure. So generally what we work with is text data, right? So we're talking about unstructured text data, and these models are really, really good at finding little creative nuggets in data. So, data sets that work really well are like, customer interviews or survey responses or, product reviews and things like that. Social media content is also really good. So looking at, like social listening data or, forums and things like that. AI will then be able to sort of iteratively sort of like read through that data. We can kind of label that data as needed. We'll also transform that data into something called embeddings so that we can just do kind of intelligent information retrieval, which kind of allows us to, let's say, put one of these systems on top of, tens of thousands of documents and pull in the right documents in the right moment to, to generate an insight or, generate content or any of the other, potential use cases. So what I'll say is it's gotten infinitely easier, right? The data prep process has gotten infinitely easier compared to where it was just a couple of years ago. And so if you're a marketer within, a big company, I would say, dive in and don't be afraid because it's quick. It's not like the AI projects from a couple of years ago that required, massive amounts of data cleaning because these models are so powerful. They don't need data to be incredibly structured.
Yeah, I think that, from my perspective, one of the biggest use cases we've seen is using AI to synthesize large amounts of data, whether that's pulling from publicly available sources or, something that's brand owned. It can be incredibly powerful. And then, of course, you have to vet it and check it. It's not 100% right now, but synthesizing that information is an incredible insights generator, is an incredible strategic tool for companies who invest a lot in these surveys. And sometimes they're like, so what? And you're like, okay, AI can help you figure out that. So what? So, you all have also been in this game for a while. I know you did really cool chat bots with companies like Dollar Shave Club. Anything you can share that's sort of in the wild that people might be able to see as a reference of how this actually comes to life externally?
Yeah, sure. We actually just launched this generator for job descriptions. If you go to generate.skillsengine.com, that's something that just released, and we have a bunch of other things that are coming out that are more sort of customer facing, right? So, we're really interested in how brands can use generative AI to engage with customers. So what I would also say is subscribe to our Substack. It's edition.substack.com, and we've got a bunch of new things coming out that we'll be sharing as well over the coming weeks.
Amazing. Paul, thank you so much for your time. Always wonderful to connect with you and hear your insights and all the cool stuff that you're building, all the recipes you are cooking up at Edition. So thank you for joining us and being on Marketing for the Now.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Paul. All right, Avery, we got one last one, and it's a good one. We're going to bring up Abe Parasnes, who is the founder and CEO of Typeface. Typeface is the enterprise-grade generative AI application to supercharge personalized content creation. We're super happy to have you, Abe. Thanks for joining us.
Of course, great to be here. Hey, Avery.
Yeah. Hello, how are you doing?
Doing great.
I'm so excited that you were able to join us. We haven't yet officially started working with Typeface, but I've been reading a lot about what you guys are building. And I'm so curious for you to share with our listeners a little bit of sort of what's cooking. So you were a senior executive at Adobe for many, many years, and then you just launched Typeface. So tell us what problem Typeface solves.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thanks for having me here, and lots of fun conversations, lots of exciting innovations. Even Mickey, I saw earlier a little bit. I've known Mickey, and there are lots of people doing really cool and exciting stuff. And so happy to share a little bit. For us, actually, it is a little bit unusual to be talking right now about Typeface because there's so much hype and noise around generative AI. But we actually started a little bit before any of the Stable Diffusion or Chat GPT. And the core thesis, Avery, was very simple. As you said, I spent 7 or 8 years at Adobe as CTO, and talking to a lot of the creatives as well as the digital marketers through that business. One thing that became clear is everyone struggles with content in the way either they can produce high quality on-brand content with lots of manual effort, or you can get speed and personalize, like get a lot of content out there. But trying to do high velocity content while preserving your brand and voice is a consistent problem that everyone was describing. And then we basically felt generative AI represents a unique moment where you can actually use the power of these generative models. But if you can bring it to the enterprise systems and workflows, and I'll share a little bit more in a bit, that is the real problem, which is marry the benefits of generative platform within your enterprise workflows in your own brand voice.
Absolutely. And I think that's a huge thing. Like so many enterprises that we work with are like, this is all cool, but like, how does this work with what my systems, how does this work with what my teams can do? How does this work with my legal team? It's a very big problem to solve. And you know, one that you probably solved many times over in your previous world. And, you know, I love this transition of you know, executives who have been in sort of leading Web 2 companies and now into this next era of the internet, because I think it speaks to what consumers are looking for in the internet, which is something that's more immersive and personalized and ownable. But personalized is going from like, you know, something that, you know, give you a little bit of a targeted ad to like everyone expects to be the main character of the internet these days. And I think generative AI really enables that. So what are some of the products that y'all are building at Typeface, and also who is your target consumer?
Yeah, so at its core, really the way you should think about Typeface, we're building 3 capabilities for enterprise customers. And so our audience really is firmly enterprise companies, which are either small and medium, but also all the way up to kind of Fortune 500, Fortune 50 companies. And the 3 core capabilities we're building, first and foremost, we are building something called Typeface Graph, which is really all about bringing all the modalities, all your content into a new kind of a generative hub. And one challenge with a lot of the current generative platforms is Chat GPT, Stable Diffusion, DALL-E, Midjourney, amazing technical breakthroughs. But that's not how your customers think about actually telling the stories. For them, their stories are their Instagram posts, their blog posts, their shopping publication on their e-commerce. And so the second thing we have built, which is very exciting, getting a lot of positive response, is something called Blend. And Blend, in an easy way to understand, is take all the large models that are out there, that amazing innovation that's happening, and then affinitize it uniquely in your company's voice for your audiences, your data, your products, your catalogs. And then with one click, being able to publish it on various platforms and various outputs that you care about. And so Blend is kind of our secret sauce of taking the large brain, if you will, of the large models, but then making it uniquely understand the language of your business, your customers, your audiences.
Well, let's see some of the magic. Let's bring up the demo so we can see how some of this stuff actually works. We'll pull it up on the screen so people can see how this magical innovation works.
Great. And so we are only going to show a small sliver, but as I said, one of the issues with the models, if you use something like Stable Diffusion, this shows what's the problem today, where when you try to generate images of a product, they don't really recognize the brand. And so what you see here is what we call Blend, where you can upload your own assets, just give us your website assets, and then we'll train it seamlessly. And then in one click, we can do a multimodal generation. And by that, if you look at something like an Instagram post here, it will generate images using the best image models, preserving the fine details of your product. It will generate the text copy in your voice, again, being trained on how you speak to your customers, and then really drive all of that. And so what you see here is this notion around generating many, many different kinds of artifacts. Blog posts, I know Paul just talked about job descriptions. And so one of the things we have, in fact, we just announced last week with one of the largest HR kind of providers, company named Sequoia, that they are going to enable typeface for hundreds of their customers to do all employee communication, job descriptions, blog posts, etc.
That's amazing. I mean, that's a very clear need, right? Also helping you empathize your communication and, leverage best practices with HR communications in the way that managers deliver feedback and, work with their employees. So how does typeface differ? You talked a little bit about how there's such a hype cycle, especially in the Bay Area right now, of everybody's launching a generative AI startup. How is typeface different from some of the other offerings that, you see in the market today?
Yeah, I mean, first, we are focused squarely on solving problems for enterprises. That's really our focus. But really, the three key differentiators. First, we are multimodal because your stories cross text, images, video. They don't go through each modality. So first, we bring all your content types in one system and let you use generative AI to tell multimodal stories. Number two, we think the next chapter of generative AI is something called affinity AI, where you affinitize these models uniquely to your company's customers and audiences. And our blend engine is the first one that does something like affinity AI for customers. And then last but not the least, there's a lot of concerns around brand safety, brand governance, the voice of I don't want this to generate some offensive content. And so we have built-in guardrails in typeface called Typeface Safe that gives enterprises control over what content actually their brand should be associated with and how do they control it, how do they deliver it safely.
I think that's so important because at the end of the day, like a lot of these big brands have a lot to lose. And, maybe something that was appropriate in 1997 is not appropriate in 2023. And, even training these models on past behavior might not be the future direction for the company who might be on a reinvention journey. So by the way, I'm seeing Eagle says you want to know each guest's website. We will post these after because I know everyone wants to see and learn more about some of these companies and what folks are building. But Abhay, working in AI, you must be amazed every day at sort of these capabilities. What are some of like the wildest use cases that you've seen of generative AI to, help enterprises reimagine their communication with consumers? Anything that was like a huge watershed or light bulb moment for you?
Yeah, I think I'll give you two, one on technology and one on the human side. On the technology side, I mean, as you said, we all have seen lots of changes, but simply the rate of change and the ability to take completely new forms of mediums. And by the way, right now, if we think text and image is mind-blowing, wait until we start seeing in the coming months, video, 3D animation, immersive. And so just the ability to create immersive stories simply by expressing what's in your mind. That is something that has never happened. So this level of democratization is unbelievable. What's actually exciting for me is the human element. I know there is a lot of concern around will this displace jobs and will take jobs away. But actually what is going to be probably more profound is once everyone is empowered to create these amazing stories and storytelling, it is going to create a whole new set of jobs for people who could never actually be able to express themselves in these rich mediums. And we are going to see an explosion of these creative jobs that I think is going to change people from just rote automation-oriented things to applying their own creativity and their mind in telling their story. So that's actually going to be pretty exciting in the years ahead.
That's such a good call out because I think about myself, I'm not very good at visual communication, but with, some of the tools that are now available and free, like I can be an artist and I can, design things that look so beautiful and impressive just by using like the skill set of writing and of communication. So I love that, point that you made earlier on multimodality, which I think we're going to see a lot more of because the reality is people do not just, think in written format or in visuals. We're starting to see a lot more happening in the world of 3D and animation. Unfortunately, Runway couldn't be here today, but they're building some really cool stuff and we'll have them on soon. But Abhay, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. I know y'all are very busy and in the middle of building this new company, and we are wishing you all the success in the world. Thank you for joining us on Marketing for the Now.
Thanks, Avery.
Thanks, Abhay. And thank you, Avery. This was so informative. What a playground.
I learned a lot, and I want to thank everybody up in the chat who's been, taking the time out of their day to join us and to learn. Like Gary said at the top of this hour, it's homework season. So this is the time to really get to hands-on with some of these tools, educate yourself, educate your organizations. We've covered a very high-level look at just a peek at how generative AI is supercharging digital marketing and changing consumer behavior on the internet forever. So if you're more of a, learner who absorbs, we actually wrote a Vayner3 white paper that you can check out on our website, vayner3.com/learn, Marketer's Guide to Generative AI. So I encourage you all to check that out. Thank you, Andrea, for hosting such a fantastic session. And we will catch everybody on the next one.
Yeah, we'll definitely be weaving AI into probably every episode going forward. But also for those of you that are on the client side, brand marketers that want to learn more, we're hosting some kind of masterclass sessions as well. So feel free to hit us up if you're interested in joining some of those. So excited about everything that's in store, Avery, and thank you so much.
Take care, everybody.
All right. And thanks to all of you for joining today. We're going to have our next episode on April 12th, where we'll be talking about something that we call Social Pack, which is social platforms and culture and how brands can become more relevant. So please don't forget to register. You can sign up at MFTN, that's for Marketing for the Now, mftn.vaynerx.com, and we will see you there.